It always comes to this. More nice shit. Morning guys, back again to do a tattoo progress update. Where I last left off, I showed off my kind of inner arm slash inner bicep, like between my armpit and shoulder, I guess. I don't know. There's this weird space that had no work in it yet. Believe it or well, not no work. It had several layers in it, but no work over black yet, and it was kind of bugging me. And so we got that filled in now. As you can see here, I don't have that negative of the old black there anymore. It obviously is first pass, so we can make that better. Did really well, to be honest. And obviously the spots up there, like in between the tentacles, are like second or third pass or whatever red. So they'll probably be a bit brighter. There's some spots in here that didn't heal as well as others. Right in the dip of my musculature there. I'm not bragging about my biceps, but like I have fairly like round biceps, so there's this huge divot in between my bicep and my shoulder here where it was kind of hard to get into, especially like multiple colors and tiny details and shit like that. And then when you're natural resting, like whenever you lift your arm, there's this kind of a dip there. There's a bit of a crease that forms. And obviously, due to the fact that I've gained and lost weight at various points in my life, decent amounts too. Like I was pretty big when I was young, and then I lost 80 pounds in 6 months, closer to 90 pounds, truth be told, in 6 months. Your skin, it's gonna get some stretch marks. And again, I put on something like 50 or 60 pounds of mostly muscle in the last 2 to 3 years, so there's been some stretch marks, and those are hard to work with. They're not as bad if you're using big mags, but if you're getting in there with small details and shit, it's gonna be like that. But yeah, you can see that it's mostly peeled, and again, first pass color for most of that, so really good results. If you're just looking to do these things maybe one time, I would say if you're looking to do any color at all, the colors I would recommend are yellow and red, because the yellow and the red in there are only one pass, whereas some things, though they do eventually get to a place where you're, happy with them, they take a little bit more work. I find the blues and greens are a little bit more of a labor. It just is what it is. Doesn't mean you can't do them. It just means they're going to be more of a effort to get there. They do show, and I feel like once you have them, they're very striking, and maybe even more striking in some cases than the red, like this this turquoise green that we have, this nice emerald green. It's very striking, and same as these, I've had people say that they look almost glow in the dark, or like neon, the light blue highlights next to that dark red. So they are worth it. They just take some time. Yeah, I'm not going to get too much more on that. I talked about my underarm a bit last time, so I'm not going to go too crazy into that. I've got another session with Rick. I want to be doing the inside stretch of the bicep, outer bicep here on the Cthulhu next time. I'd like to build some more texture in there. You can see it's just a little flatter in the inner part, and I am in the extremities of I want to make everything as good as it can be, so that part's been bugging me for a while, so that's on my kill list, and I want to have everything more or less as detailed as the outside of my bicep and as clear. And even that blue that Terry and I did helped the Cthulhu as well. Got like a crossfire benefit from being right next to that, and anytime you put color next to a black on black outline, it's going to help that black on black outline stand out. So we got a lot of a lot of pop out of it that at the time wasn't my first priority, but it definitely does help in the long term. Anyway, I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing me talk about my Cthulhu sleeve on a hand tattoo update, but I've just always got so many odds and ends going that it's impossible not to forget a few things in the actual updates. So I sat down with Terry for what would be my fourth pass on my right hand, or right fingers, not my right hand, and really not even my fingers, but for the blackout portion. I had knuckle script, the far end near knuckles, so I had on my two fingers, or two sides of my fingers, I had give and take, and iron will, as cliche as that may be. Everybody has their own little way to do it, and that was what I chose. And I also had some bats on my thumbs, and some chef daggers, or knives on my thumbs as well. So my hands were, they were always fully tattooed. Like, obviously there was negative space, but they were tattooed. My fingers were tattooed in the old sense of, like, I had finger script tattoos and things like this. But so I had a bunch of work on my fingers already when I blacked them out, but nothing like the blackout. So I'll just get into it. Obviously, it's the second day, and actually putting this up here, it's like, this should be worse than it is. Because, like, if I had made this video the day after I had these done last time, I could not do this. My fingers were locked like that. There's a variety of reasons I think that was always the case. We always did my fingers and my hand at the same time. And I think when you do both sets of knuckles, it locks your range of motion to like this, because even when you just do your knuckles, like these knuckles, it swells up quite a bit and you can't really bend as well. So then when you do both sets at the same time, you have a very limited range of motion. So let's get into the session. There's so much to unpack here, really. Sat down, and always finger tattoos are one where you're kind of thinking that there isn't much surface space, so you're not going to be there very long. But it ends up being at least an hour every time, like if you do it right. If you're doing it right, it should take some time. The first time Lee and I ever did it, we used a 27 mag, and it was just banged up the skin so much. Like, it was just, by the time Lee got halfway down my finger, the whole thing was fucking swollen. And in his own words, it, in the end, looked like he ran my hand over with a truck. And when your skin gets that swollen and that traumatized, there's no way you're going to have a perfect result. So on the second pass, he tried 23 mag, and he had pretty good results with that. And in truth, the left hand that Lee did 3 times was better than the right hand that Rick had done. And Rick used 7 mags, so I think 7 and 11 mags. Terry chose a 15 mag, and he had 27 handy in case he wanted to try it, but I did tell him 27 mag on fingers seems to really just bust it up quite a bit. I was going to let him do whatever he wants, so I'm not going to tell him how to do his job, but he does ask me. Obviously, I've had all of these things done so many times, so the benefit of working with Terry has always been his open mind. And I've said this a few times, where, like, he just assumes that I would know something about it, where I've had it done before. And generally, by the time you're getting around to blacking out your fingers, if you're an old school person in this realm, if you've been doing this a while, blacking out your fingers is always going to be like, or almost always going to be a cover up. And it's almost always the case that if you're doing that, you have a ton of work already. I don't know if that's the case these days, but it was then. Again, this was 5 years ago, and 5 years ago isn't that long. It feels like it was just yesterday. But the world has changed a lot in 5 years. People are doing that stuff as their first tattoo these days, and I don't recommend it. There's a variety of reasons that I don't recommend it. For one thing, I'm not moving around as well as I would like to be today. I am moving around better than I expected to be, but it will impact my job ever so slightly. Whereas when I did this the first time and I was still in the kitchen, I had 4 days off to heal, and I couldn't move my fucking fingers for close to a week. So it's like, okay, well, I guess I need more than 4 days off, so I'm getting some extra time off, and all of a sudden you're making less money than you expected, and you're being a pain in the ass. No employer wants to hear, oh, you're taking time off because you have a tattoo and you can't work. Now, my job didn't mind because they know me, and I never called in sick ever. I had 10 years without a sick day. It was a legendary streak there. So for me, they were just more concerned when this happened, but that was built on a foundation of trust and patience and kind of an honor of some kind. So, but in most circumstances, your employers aren't going to be happy to hear you can't come to work because you're healing a tattoo. Whereas for me, because I had that foundation of trust, it was more like, holy shit, are you okay, Jer? And it's like, yes, I am okay, but these things can take some time to heal. So it's life deranging. You can't do things the way you would. And also, it can cost you quite a bit because you can be off work for quite a while. Not to mention, these things can be very hard to heal. If you don't heal them right, you can get infection and all kinds of stuff very easily in your fingers. They take a while to seal up generally. I've got mine pretty well dried out already. Like, this is really, really positive result for fucking not even, it's been 12 hours, I think, a little over 12 hours. I feel like this is where I was at day 3 the last time I did this in terms of mobility and overall, like, even the aesthetic of them, where the knuckles are swollen, but they're not swollen to their limits. So I think there was something in doing just the fingers. So with that said, even during the session, Terry and I could both see that they weren't fully saturated in spots. You can't really see that now. What you can see here in the light isn't unsaturated. That's like shine, and like there's still some of these little moisture pockets from the skin. The little divots in your fingers will hold on to some kind of fluid like plasma, and it makes your skin look kind of like it can make your skin look soggy. So that's what you're seeing there. And you really want to just try and dry that up. Don't over moisturize when it's doing that, because if I was to put moisturizer of any kind right there in that spot, it would sink into the skin, and that little pocket would get even more full with like some type of fluid plasma. And you just want them to seal up as quickly as you can. Once they're completely dried out looking, you can use a little bit of aftercare. It's just, I wouldn't personally recommend doing much until you don't see any more of those weird kind of soggy looking pockets, because that's open tissue still, and they can very easily open up further, and once that happens, they're much more prone to infection and bad healing and all kinds of things. Leaking plasma. You don't want plasma to leak out, because when you do see that, you're losing the black ink you were trying to put in. So there's a variety of reasons why I would not recommend this for someone's fucking first tattoo, and I've seen it done that way. It should intuit, but it doesn't. It's like, this is a more even when I did it the first time, I remember thinking it was a level up in my comprehension of healing, and for pain it was a lot too. That's another thing. The pain was still substantial. Like, I remember the first time I did it with Lee, it was like, this might be the most painful tattoo I've done. And like, it's pain per second, maybe not overall, because like when you're doing big sessions on large areas, you're getting a longer term pain. You're in pain for longer, and it's more like you're enduring something. Whereas when you do something like a palm tattoo or finger blackouts, even though this took close to an hour or so, you're in that for a relatively short time, so you know that you're on the clock and you're gonna win out. Like, you're gonna pace through it. Like, you already know once it starts, it's only gonna last a little while, so you can tell yourself little things like, oh yeah, 4:30 I'll be at home. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of like, you can almost time travel through it in a way of speaking, because you think, what hour has ever lasted that long, and then you apply it to the hour you're in, And it's almost a superpower where you're like, oh, of course, I'm not going to be feeling this for very long. And the big benefit of this is, like, I don't have any pain right now. Like, obviously I would have pain if I whopped it against the wall or something, but there's like no pain in my fingers. And I feel the same way about palms too. Like, almost as soon as it's over, maybe for an hour or two, there's some soreness, but then the pain is basically done and you're more or less just healing. So yeah, but you have to be mindful of the fact that everything you do for the next close to a week, and might be less this time, you won't be able to use that hand the same way. So even if you have to write anything at work, you have to type or text, or in my case, when I was in the kitchen, everything I did was with my hands, and I'm really hard on my hands in the kitchen. You have to kind of compensate for that with your other hand, and my right hand is my dominant hand, so being that I'm lacking my dominant hand, everything I do is going to be slightly off. So even cracking open some eggs this morning was a bitch, you know. It's just little things like that, you know. And like, before I did this, I still was apprehensive right before the appointment, because like, now I can't work out for like a week at least. Like, and normally when I get tattooed, I can work out like the next day, unless it's, you know, I'll avoid a certain body part, obviously, but all I'll be able to do with this is some light cardio. And I don't like that. I want to be able to work out. I like working out. It's become a staple part of my life. And so there was part of me that didn't want to do it, not because of all of this, but because I won't be able to do my fitness routines. And I feel lazy and terrible when I don't. I've done enough now where, like, I feel like I'm making excuses, and sometimes I'm not. Like, if I was to start fucking curling weights or doing like pull-ups or fucking push-ups with this today, this thing would swell up to the fucking moon and bust open. So it's not an excuse, but mentally it feels like one. That's what happens when you have certain routines in your life and you're not doing them. And then you always dread getting back into them too, because you start to kind of like, you get used to it. You're like, I'll do one more day. And so I don't like that. I don't like that inner bitch thing that happens where it's like, oh yeah, give yourself the excuse. So as soon as I am able to again, I will be back at it. I don't want to lose anything. And it's less physical than it is mental, because I'm in a very good mental conditioning with it right now. I don't want to let that slide. Anyway, going to be back on the back again here right away. And because I had such a decently easy time with this, I have been saying that this would be the last time I did this. And it still may be. We'll see what it looks like. Should mention we used Panthera Black. It's a dynamic this time, so it will have a different color to it almost. But like, because it's doing so well and it's only been a day already, I think I am open to potentially doing another pass on it, maybe next year, if it needs more work. This one needed more than this one, so we'll see how it goes. I am definitely doing this hand again, the fingers on this one here. If not in a few weeks, in a few months. I have a slot for it in a few weeks, but Rick wants to do some more red here, so I kind of want to let him do what he's going to do before I go into these fingers, because the fingers should be built after the red, as I do plan on doing the red on this hand again for the 4th time, and that's why we did leave all that red in the negative of the black this time, in case it wasn't making sense. Probably should have put that closer to the beginning of this video, because most people aren't going to be paying attention at this point or watching at this point, as the average attention span on social media of all kinds is between 13 to 22 seconds. And I often have people ask me questions on these videos that I've already answered in these very videos. In this same video, I'll have answered a question that someone asks without watching this video. Which can be a bit infuriating. And it's like, in those cases, I'm not answering your question, because if you couldn't pay attention to the video where I answered your question, you don't want the answer that bad. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.